Project Management for Healthcare Managers, Week 3, Sponsorship, HTML 375. The sponsor is the leader that has direct control over the project. They should have the right resources available, and they're usually the ones that initiate the project. In some case, this leader thinks this is a handoff from the project manager that should have the responsibility for finishing. The sponsor is actually a key role throughout the project, and their absence can cause a project to slow down and even fail. It is proposed that the sponsor is the most important factor in getting projects done on time and within budget and scope. If you're the project manager, you will improve your ability to be successful in completing your project. If you can get a sponsor involved, and if you are a sponsor, a healthcare manager that starts a project, knowing the actions it will take to help a project succeed will be very beneficial. This is a short list of expectations for a sponsor in a successful project. Some of these actions are basic project expectations, that the sponsor removes roadblocks and provides approval for the charter. But they also need to provide leadership, communication, and ownership for the success of the outcomes. Working through all the resources of how a sponsor can contribute to a project, I have 4 key activities that a sponsor can do to contribute to the success of a project. The first is to have a clear definition of the project. They should have a clear vision of what success looks like and would be able to communicate this to the project team. They also need to be clear on how the project fits into the goals and strategy of the organization. The sponsor also needs to be an active participant in the communication. Their support and approval needs to be included in the messaging to the rest of the organization. The sponsor needs to be able to assign the resources to work on the project. If they don't have direct authority, they'll need to be accountable for getting what is needed. The sponsor should also hold the project manager and the project team accountable for the project activities. The sponsor also owns sustainability of the results after the project is finished. The best way to sustain results is to be engaged throughout the project. The sponsor's roles are different than other leaders in the organization. If a leader doesn't own the resources or isn't accountable for results, they can't make an effective sponsor, even if they're enthusiastic. Leaders that are higher up in the organizations make great executive sponsors, but the project sponsors needs to have direct accountability for the resources of the project. The project team acts as an agent for the sponsor. Having the PM skills, they provide the nuts and bolts of daily project management. The customer receives the benefit of the project, and the more that they're engaged in the development and requirements of the outcomes, the better the project will be successful. The primary role that is well known for sponsors is assignment of resources and the removal of roadblocks. They are also responsible for signing the charter and the close documents that formalize the approval before a project starts and when a project delivers. There also needs to be accountability from the sponsor for the project manager, the project team, and the resources to work toward the goals of the project and to follow the project plan. There needs to be positive reinforcement and a perceived benefit from the project team to stay on track, as well as negative consequences if they fail to deliver. This drives motivation for the members of the project team and is best when coming from a sponsor. The sponsor also needs to encourage the vision, not only to the project, but an overall vision for the success of the organization. Two other important roles in the project are the facilitator and the change agent. Typically, this is the project manager, but the sponsor may own these roles as well. The facilitator is focused on group dynamics and encourages participation in working together as a team. The change agent needs to understand the change from the impact on the stakeholders and manage resistance to the project. A good facilitator or change manager not only knows the team dynamics in the change cycle, but also needs to assess and intervene when necessary. This means they need to be aware of their skills and to be able to work with a sponsor to help them. The customers have a unique role in that they're the targets of the project results and outcomes. But sometimes they're never consulted until the project is complete. A successful project not only meets the requirements, but ensures the outcomes meets the needs of the customer. There once was a group of car engineers who worked on a project to address a customer complaint for the fit of the doors. The engineers worked on the way the doors were connected and changed the exterior design and reduced the gap between the frame and the door. The following year, the customer still complained about the fit of the doors. When an engineer asked the customer about the fit, the customer said is when they shut the doors it was too loud. They didn't like the noise it made. So the fit of the doors was the only choice in the survey that was close. Finding out what the customers really wanted shouldn't be a one-time survey, but an active relationship throughout the project. One of the approaches of Agile includes the customers throughout the project to design the solution as you go. But any project will benefit by having the needs clearly defined, to provide value metrics to verify the customers are getting what they want. They also want to know how the outcomes are going to affect them, and getting them involved early with training will help to reduce the amount of resistance. The factors you see in good sponsorship are that leaders have motivation and purpose and can pass this to the team. This is what Kouzes and Posner in the last section meant by encouraging the heart. Another factor to note here is that good sponsors will model integrity by doing what they say they're going to do and acting consistently with the behaviors they're asking for. We reviewed sponsors' needs to be involved in decision and to provide empowerment for the team. There also needs to demonstrate to the team and the organization how the project will contribute to the overall success of the organization. It's this big picture thinking that creates a business case for success and inspires the team to succeed. After the fire is lit, the sponsor needs to follow through and fuel the drive to be motivated through reinforcement. Reinforcement by a sponsor to encourage behaviors and promote motivation has 3 levels, each level taking more investment by the sponsor, but also producing greater rewards and motivation. The first level is promoting or verbally expressing support. The next level is modeling desired behaviors, and the highest level is rewarding for desired behaviors. It looks like this. If a sponsor does nothing, the project will still progress based on motivation and enthusiasm of the team. It's certain to be low. Working on a project that isn't important to the sponsor or the organization, it's difficult to be motivated. If the sponsor will express their support and tell others through their speeches and written communication, there will be an increase in motivation by the team. If the sponsor publicly models the desired behavior, there will be even more motivation. This is especially productive if the sponsor demonstrates they have to overcome their own resistance to change and accept the new way. The highest level of motivation is when there's reward or promotion when the project succeeds. And the behavior is positively reinforced when the reward is something meaningful and impactful to the receiver. A great sponsor can help a project succeed, and a poor sponsor can contribute to a project failing, or not meeting the time commitments, or costing too much. Unfortunately, in healthcare, I've seen too many of these behaviors in many cases, not because the leaders were poor leaders, but simply they did not know their level of responsibility and impact on the project. Some of the impacts from poor sponsorship is that the project doesn't seem important or loses importance during the course of the project. I've seen sponsors that aren't engaged with projects because they don't know what they're supposed to do, or they think they can hand off responsibility and make the project more accountable for results. This accountability can't be handed off and bad things happen, like the project loses importance and people feel like they're stuck on a project. If the results aren't clear, and scope creep keeps the outcomes as a moving target. Sometimes good results aren't recognized and nothing is done about poor performance. This deflates enthusiasm and sends the accountability for project success into a downward spiral. Too many consequences focus on negative behavior and cause fear of mistakes or no room for risk. This can be just as demotivating as apathy. It's more effective when the sponsor has a close relationship to the targets. This role map demonstrates a cascade of sponsorship within an organization. For the target level of change, the level of work for the project, it's the fourth level in this diagram. The best sponsor for the reinforcement of motivation and behavior is at the next level up, the third level. A good reinforcing sponsor can be at a higher level, but too high, they lose that connection. We see this happen in an organization where a VP has an idea for a project, but doesn't get that buy-in from middle management. This is where corporate culture will end up eating the project. Being able to assess a sponsor before a project starts can be the first step in proactively managing the role of the sponsor. This can be a beneficial exercise for a project manager, so that the relationship with the sponsor to the project can be managed and encouraged. I will describe more about managing your sponsor in the next slides. Or if you're the sponsor, what skills or action can you contribute to what you need to work on? Going through this as a checklist is a good activity. Does the sponsor have a clear sense of the project and know what the outcomes are, how the project affects the customers, and how it will support the organization? Does the sponsor have good communication and interpersonal skills? Are they a good facilitator? Is the sponsor motivated? Does the sponsor inspire others through their actions? Does the sponsor have enough resource and budget to complete the requirements of the project? And does the sponsor support rewards and recognitions to project success? If you are the sponsor, it may be in your best interest for project success to look at how to promote these actions and behaviors. The next few slides will focus on the role of the project manager to actively manage this relationship. The project manager can take an active role in managing sponsor engagement. Typically, this is known as managing up, and these approaches, especially contracting, can be an effective way of managing your boss. Sponsor contracting is clarifying the costs and benefits with the project manager sponsor relationship. For any good contract, there needs to be mutual benefit. The sponsor gets the project manager to manage the project, and the project manager asks the leader for specific actions that contribute to the success of the project. For example, project manager may ask a sponsor to give a statement of support that includes the benefit to the organization at the kickoff. This will encourage reinforcement and increase motivation within a team. Sponsor contracting is a way to set expectations, and there are additional steps in improving a weak sponsor that will be discussed later. Sometimes a project manager will have to seek sponsorship, and there's some defined steps to encourage engaged sponsors. Sponsor contracting is more than just defining your ask from your sponsor. It's about creating value. We typically don't value something we get for free, so establishing a relationship of mutual benefit is a great way to build your own value. Sitting down with the sponsors and identifying what you want them to do can be challenging, especially when starting out. First, be able to frame your language in the currency of the sponsor. They should control the budget, so be able to frame your asks in adherence to the budget, or getting the project done on time. Be direct and ask for specific actions. Get to the point. Ask for the hardest thing first and only ask for a couple of things at a time within each meeting. Always leave the door open to be able to talk later. Can we talk about this if things change? And practice before you do it. Something to note on contracting. Every ask is a test to trust and commitment from the sponsor. The plan to improve sponsorship relies on your ability to recognize the weak points and to work on those. You need to be able to know what you want in sponsor engagement and not expect your sponsor to automatically know what is missing. Once you have the gaps, use sponsor contracting to motivate and educate on what you need from them. Telling them why to stress the importance of the project contribution to the organization during kickoff will help them frame the ask and deliver what you need. Sometimes sponsors don't get it, and other leaders may be enlisted to try to help. It may be escalated or to try to create a governance over the project so that it delivers that added level of accountability. If these aren't working, have patience. The project will eventually be over or canceled. This sounds weak, but in some cases, hopefully rare, there's simply not a good match of sponsor to project, and even drastic steps can make minimal changes. If your sponsor leaves, either physically goes somewhere or just checks out and is uninvolved, then a new sponsor must be found. Here are some steps to prepare to find a new sponsor. The first step is to define the impact on the customer. What is important to the results of the project? Then review the org chart to look for a candidate. It may be helpful to create a key role map like we saw a few slides ago. Then define the project in the frame of reference to the sponsor. And what benefit will this project be to a leader? Gather status updated as far as what's going on with the project. Do they have enough resources? Are they ahead? Are they behind? And then propose the project as a contract. What you will get and what they will get. What you plan to do and what you need from them to succeed. If you do get a sponsor that agrees to your contract, then sustain the relationship through encouraging participation and promoting reinforcement. During this session, we examined the role of the sponsor. We identified expectations, especially around sponsor engagement. The role of the sponsor, the team, and the customer impacts the project, as well as the roles of facilitator and change agent. Then we looked at the factors of good sponsorship, as well as what happens in poor sponsorship. One of the critical factors of good sponsorship is reinforcement, which includes expressing, modeling, and reinforcement. Finally, we talked about how to actively assess and improve sponsor engagement through contracting.